I am the disabled guy with the disabled life. This podcast is going to be about disabled issues and other things that interest me and others from the disabled community. I did this so that people understand what we go through in life and what we do, because a lot of what we do, it is interesting. I'm also going to talk a little bit about ADA and things of that nature. It's something that's very important to me and something that I learned a lot about when I did an episode. I'm going to talk more about it. Okay. This podcast, it's going to come out at 10 p.m. Saturday and Wednesday. So, so that's when that's when I think most people listen. Most people listen at night or have the episodes there for during the for the daytime. So let me stop this. Stop. Okay, what I'm going to talk about today is something with a amateur radio story behind it, in order for you to understand context. Okay. I am an amateur radio operator, for those of you that don't know and don't follow me. So I was doing volunteer work. I was being a net control, which means I was doing weekly nets for practice for people to check in and check their radio equipment, etc. Okay. So that's part of my story. So now so they want a repeater trustee, which is the owner of a repeater. A repeater is something that takes a signal and makes it go further when you use a handheld. So, being that they are the owners of those machines, or the designee that runs the machine in the case of a club, because when amateur radio clubs, they own them and they just designate a person that's willing to work on it and be responsible for it by putting their call sign on it. So one of the local clubs had decided that they didn't want me on the repeater. So I'm like, I was notified that I was banned from the repeater. So what happened was, okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm ignoring. Okay, the guy told me you can't go on the repeater, and I said, I didn't even ask him why. I never know. I didn't know to this day why this happened, and it doesn't matter to me because I have other repeaters I could go on if I want to. So I'm fine. So all of a sudden, this club disbands. So the owner of this repeater, the trustee, does not have an issue with me. He was the only one that voted against them and for me. So that was the issue. So fast forward a couple years. So I hear through a friend of mine that's also an amateur radio operator that they want to do this from another group of repeaters. And so I'm sitting here doing all this. So I'm dealing with all this. I'm frustrated. I'm going frustrated because I don't understand what's happening and they want to do this again. I was like, no, this is not happening again. So, so here comes the story. And then I'll continue with this stuff. So, in the midst of this, I met two people, two friends of mine that were helping me get to one of the club meetings, not club meeting, a emergency group that I was involved with. So then, okay, let me go back and give you a little more context on the repeater thing. So, being that I am disabled, I found out from a friend of mine that they wanted to ban me again. So I call the FCC, which is my, which is who gives us our licenses. I'm sorry if this is long, but in order for you to understand where I'm going with this, you need to know this. Sorry about that. So I call them, and so I call them up, and the FCC tells me, oh, they want to do this because they want to go off the net. So I'm like, I don't think so. I beg to differ, I told the lady that I was speaking with. So I'm like, what is going on? So this happened, and I'm like, this terrible. So then, I talked to her, and I told her, look, because one of the people they want to ban is the net manager's wife, and that manager is a person that is in charge of it, so that the nets get covered. That's what a net manager is. These are all volunteer positions. These are not paid positions. These are all volunteer positions. So what happened is, so I call them up and I talk to them, and then they go. The interesting part was that I told her, I feel, and her, and she was disabled. She's now passed, and another gentleman, also disabled, they wanted to do the same thing too. So I'm like, oh no. So then I told them, no, this is what's happening. I feel that they're violating our civil rights. So I stopped this, and they gave him a cease and desist order. What that means is that you cannot. They have to stop what they're doing. So okay. So then, I met these people, and I'm talking to them, and they're giving me rides to a meeting. And one day, somehow, there was a meeting, and the wife is the one that used to go take me to the meeting. They thought that I was going to get upset because of all the underlying issues, because I was frustrated with all the underlyings. So my point here, my long-winded point is, sometimes people don't know and don't understand what we're going through, and don't understand our feelings, because they meet us during these times in our life that we have these issues. So they're not meeting the real person. They didn't meet me as a person. They met the pissed off, frustrated individual that I was at the moment, at that moment in my life. So that's when I say we have to give people grace. And I wasn't upset about it. I was like, wow, this is so relevant to them that they were about to jump to a meeting they didn't want to go to. He didn't want to go, so I'm like, okay, don't worry about it, it's fine. And I didn't talk about it. And, just give people grace. We have to learn that people don't understand what we go through and what we're going through. Sometimes it's not easy. Life is not easy. For those of you that don't know, I don't drive, so that's why they were giving me rides to these meetings. So, for those of you that don't know, give people grace when you, because that annoyed me. I was like, why are they doing all this, worrying about all this? And I'm like, don't worry, it's fine. And they were saying, are you sure? I said, yeah, don't worry about it. So what I did is I didn't talk about it. But here comes the ironic part. During all this time, I am also a volunteer examiner, which means I am authorized to proctor an exam for amateur radio. So I go to the club meeting, and one of the people that's banning me, that's causing me all this trouble, is there to sign an exam. I can't, and I won't do it. I'll still do it. So I'm like, there's three people. There's only three of us. That's the minimum. That's the minimum complement of examiners. So even if I wanted to, which I did not want to, he passed his exam, so I had to sign him off and approve it. But it's ironic that he shows up where I'm doing my job when he's causing me a headache. So give these people grace. I don't know what they thought. Even those, I forgive and forget. I'm sorry, I don't forgive. I forgive, but I don't forget. I forgave them for their mistake. I didn't understand what was happening. For example, with the two people that gave me rides to meetings, I never talked to them about nothing. I never talked to them about nothing. So, I never told them, hey, once I did that, they started to understand the person I really am. Where I'm very go with the flow. I don't, let things bother me. It's very, very, very easy to do so. So, I'm sorry about this long one to tell you a short little story on giving people grace. It's interesting how we have to go around in a long way to make a point. I am the disabled. Thank you for listening to my episodes. My episodes will come out Monday and Wednesday. You can listen to me on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and many others, including iHeartRadio. The reason I've done this podcast is to give people a voice. Because I think that the disabled community is missing a voice. But I am in a unique position of being able to afford minimal equipment to do this. I'm going to give you my email address. My email, if you want to contact me, is ke4key@gmail.com. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, at The Disabled Guy, and a few other places where I put my episodes out on Facebook too. With that, thank you for listening. And I also want to thank you for your support. I also want to thank you for your support in my podcast. I really found a passion for the podcast. I started it during COVID, but I really found a passion. Thank you.